As many of you likely know, the topic of siege operators can get a little heated. Many different players have wildly different opinions on what operators are strong and who are weak. However, in today's video, I'm going to be going over some of the commonly picked and banned operators that I think are completely overrated by majority of the community. Starting off with Fenrir. Fenrir currently at the time of recording has a ban rate of 59% and a 12% pick rate, and I think both of these stats are way too high. The reason why I think this is because his mines are not nearly as hard to counter as they used to be. Now Fenrir can be countered with a simple twitch or brava, and since his mines are no longer bulletproof at any point, you can very easily shoot them if you drone them out. Additionally, his secondary gadgets are not nearly as strong as they used to be. He only has access to a BP and observation blockers, which really narrows the situations that you should pick him in. And this combined with his now weaker traps means that other trap operators will provide way more utility in majority of situations. Operators like Legion can provide you with way more intel because of the fact that he has a ton of mines at his disposal, and he'll probably be more effective at slowing the attackers down and dealing some chip damage to them. And so because of that, I do not think banning Fenrir is worth it, especially when other trap operators like Legion exist that are way better. And I also don't think picking him as often as most players are doing is really worth it. Now moving past Fenrir, we have the first attacker of the video, Jackal. And I put Jackal in this video because I think him having a ban rate of 19% is really insane. Jackal is not an operator that particularly brings a lot of utility. His gadget compared to other tracking operators like Deimos, Lion, and Dokkaebi just really is not as good, because not only does his pings not last very long, but whenever he pings an opponent, it also reveals his location as well, because the defender getting pinged can estimate roughly where he is, since the only way he can ping opponents is by scanning their footprints that they left behind. But even taking that into account, a lot of players find him as an annoying operator to go against. However, he's really not that bad if you know how to counter him. Jackal is definitely a good operator. He has good weapons, his secondary gadgets are decent, and his tracking capability can be useful, especially since you can just follow an operator's footprints. But those attributes don't make him deserving of the ban rate that he has and the hatred that people give him for being annoying. Vigil, on the other hand, is the total opposite of Jackal, an operator that everyone seems to love to play right now, with him having a pick rate of 25%. And I think Vigil is the definition of an operator picked for his weapons. His gadget is pretty mid, since his ability to hide from cameras isn't really that reliable, especially since drones can kind of pinpoint your location based on the strength of the glitch effect on their screen, and he doesn't really bring much utility to his team since his secondary gadgets and his gadget itself is pretty self-centered. When you compare this to other operators that bring utility to their team, like Mozzie, Valkyrie, Legion, or really any other operator that's a 2-speed with a good gadget, the reasons for picking Vigil on a roam kind of starts to fall apart. But I think most players already know this. The only reason why most people pick Vigil is so they can use his Boss G, which right now is really heavily in the meta. This is because his Boss G can very consistently one-shot opponents as long as you're within medium range, and in long range it can 2-shot opponents. This makes the Boss G a really popular choice for spawn peeking and just for running around the map on a roam to get easy kills, and it really makes people fear Vigil in a gunfight. However, I would argue that an operator having access to the Boss G being the only reason that people pick them and the only reason why they place them at higher positions on a tier list kind of shows the flaws with him as an operator. Now moving on past Vigil, we have an operator that many of you might not expect, and that is Blitz. Blitz right now has a ban rate of 27%, and many players consider him to be an extremely annoying operator to go against, and a lot of people view him as strong because of that. However, after the shield rework, Blitz is the worst shield operator in the game. The reason this is the case is because for Blitz to get the max amount of utility out of his gadget, he is required to get up close to his opponents. This means that whenever Blitz wants to blind an opponent, he has to get up close, risking him getting meleeed and also risking him being subject to impact grenades and other forms of explosives. And since Blitz's shield isn't a full body shield like Montaigne, he can very easily die to these explosives. But on top of that, Blitz also just has a ton of counters. If Blitz runs into any sort of trap operator in the process of him trying to rush, like a Frost, Legion, or even a Capcan, he can very easily be slowed down or even outright killed given the right circumstances. And in the situations where Blitz is strong, Blackbeard most likely would be even stronger, since Blackbeard has access to a primary weapon that he can ADS with at any point. So I really don't understand why players think Blitz is such a strong and formidable operator to go against, because realistically he can be very easily countered if you pick a lineup around the fact that an enemy is picking a Blitz, and in most situations the enemy would be better off just picking another operator anyways. Now I would argue that the most overrated operator in Rainbow Six Siege right now, and the most overpicked one, is Doc, who currently has a pick rate of 45%. Healing operators in Siege are extremely niche for reasons I've discussed before. One-shot headshot being a mechanic in Siege makes healers a lot weaker weaker since they can't guarantee utility out of their gadgets. If your teammates all die to headshots, or in the case of Doc, if you die to a headshot early in the round, then you'll never be able to use your stim pistols, and you basically were useless for the entire round. This means that Doc has to stay alive to use his gadget. So if he loses an unlucky gunfight early in the round, then he's basically screwed his team. And the only thing he really brings to the table outside of that gadget is his barbed wire and his secondary shotgun to make rotates, both of which are not strong enough to justify bringing an operator like this. His guns are really not that good either. Most players are only picking him just for an ACOG and having access to those stims so they can stim themselves in a gunfight. But this is a very selfish pick, and you can get way more utility out of picking other operators like Thunderbird, who can still heal her teammates after she dies, who has better weapons than Doc, and who has better secondary gadgets than Doc because she has access to a deployable shield and barbed wire. So right now, with the current state of balancing in the game, there's really no reason to be picking Doc over Thunderbird or most other operators in Team Rainbow, in my opinion. Nomad is another operator just like Mini on this list that has a pick rate way too high once you look at what she brings to the team. Nomad currently at the time of recording has a pick rate of 21%, which makes her the 5th most picked operator in Siege. And her loadout and gadget really does not justify this placement whatsoever. Her gadget, her air jabs, can very easily be dealt with. Not only are they countered by anti-projectile operators like Jaeger and Wamai, which both of which are seen a lot at the higher ranks, but they can also be easily shot no matter where they're placed. There are very rare situations where Nomad's air jabs actually play a significant role in the round, and even when they would play a significant role, an impact or a nitro cell can get rid of her air jabs easily if the defenders find themselves in a pinch. This combined with the fact that Nomad's weapon loadout is really mediocre, with her only having access to the AK-74, one of the worst ARs in the game, and the ARX, a very mediocre AR with a really low magazine size, I really can't think of a reason why Nomad's this high on this list. Maybe people are picking her this much because they want to deal with runouts, but I still don't understand why you'd pick Nomad in those situations, because Claymores have recently been buffed and are a lot better at countering runouts than Nomad is. And Ash follows down a very similar path as Nomad, with her pick rate being a whopping 55% right now. And I really do not think what Ash brings justifies this in any way. Her gadget is really not that amazing, since she only has access to 2 breaching rounds, meaning that she can only deal with 2 pieces of utility or open 2 soft surfaces, which is nothing, especially since nades and Gone 6 can do this same task as a secondary gadget. But even compared to other operators that are her competition, like Zofia, she's completely outclassed, with Zofia having a better launcher that has 2 stuns and 2 impact grenades. She has weapons that can very easily compete with Ash, and she's a 3 armor, which makes it easier for her to take gunfights without dying. The main reason Ash is picked is mainly just for her gun being the R4C and her 3 speed rating, since a lot of players still like to play the run and gun meta, where they just pick an operator with a good gun and they just run around and go ham with her. But in most situations, you'd just be better off picking an operator with more utility so that your team can actually be successful in executing onto the site. Now, Kapkan is an operator that's in a very weird position. Right now, he has a 10% ban rate on PC, which is pretty high, but on console, he has a 55% ban rate. This puts Kapkan in a position where he's one of the most banned operators in the game, and I don't really see why. His gadget can be dealt with just by properly droning, especially if you can spot Kapkan early during the prep phase. This will allow your entire team to be aware of Kapkan and to be wary of walking through doorways. And if you're actually droning rooms before you enter them, you should be able to spot Kapkan traps and call them out to your team. But on top of that, picking Kapkan is also just a huge risk. If you place your Kapkan traps on the wrong side of the map where the enemy team isn't pushing, then you get absolutely nothing out of his gadget, which when compared to other trap operators like Fenrir, Legion, or Malusi, this is less of a problem with them since they have more traps to their disposal that they can easily spread out. Realistically, Kapkan does not warrant the high ban rate that he has right now. If you're running into Kapkan traps on a consistent basis to the point where you're having to ban them, that's just a skill issue. You can very easily drone out Kapkan traps and deal with them, and if the enemy likes picking Kapkan, you can even use Brava drones to hack them to turn them against the enemy team. You'd be better off banning an operator like Legion, whose traps are a lot harder to spot and whose traps waste a whole lot more time than banning Kapkan. Anyways, that about wraps up today's video. Let me know if you agree or disagree with any of the operators on this list in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your opinion. If you enjoyed today's video, I make Siege content just like this twice a week, so go subscribe to the channel and follow me on Twitter if you don't want to miss the next upload. If you want to watch another video just like this one, a video will be popping up on your screen right now that I'm sure you all enjoy. I'll see you next time, friends, and peace.